A murder mystery birthday party on a private island goes horribly wrong when the host is murdered. Can Barnaby solve the death of a millionaire game maker? Did you know that Clue is called Cluedo in England? Does that have anything to do with this? Not at all. We're talking Japanese puzzle boxes.
The history of board games.
And Barnaby and Winter finally sleep together in this episode of
Welcome to Midsummer.
Hello and welcome to Midsummer, the podcast where we dissect all the mysteries, the murders, and the many weird things about the long-running hit TV show Midsummer Murders. I'm your host, Eric Buscher, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Eileen Becker. Hey, Eileen.
Hey, Eric. Today we are talking about Happy Families, the third episode of the 22nd series. It originally aired October 3rd, 2021 in the UK, but for some reason Sweden aired it first on July 27th. It was directed by Audrey Cook and written by Nick Hicks Beach. Let's have a mystery party.
Spoiler warning, we will be discussing the events of this episode, including the identity of the murderer. So if you haven't watched it yet, don't want to know who done it, pause this and go watch it. We'll still be here when you get back.
Good evening. I'm Inspector Doppler. Doppler of the Yard, they call me. Sadly, it's my duty to inform you that this is our crime scene.
It's a dark and stormy night at Karras' house, a mansion on a private island owned by games manufacturer Victor Karras. It's his birthday party, and the house is full of guests as well as his wife Eleanor, his daughter Danny, her partner Noah, his sister-in-law Alicia, and her husband Paul, and of course his ever-present assistant Joshua. The party is in full swing when a waiter gets into an argument with a guest and ends up murdered. Or so it seems, because in fact it's a murder mystery party where the guests have to figure out who the killer is. Victor really gets into the act by choking and knocking into a statue of the Egyptian god Anubis, which sends a giant spear directly into Victor's chest, killing him. This party is amazing! Barnaby is called in, leaving home just as he is having a big snit with Sarah for some reason. He arrives at the island by the only means available, a ferry drawn back and forth by a chain. Laura tells him that the spear didn't kill Victor, he died from cyanide poisoning. Since cyanide works quickly, he must have been poisoned within 15 minutes or so of his death. Barnaby interviews a very pregnant Eleanor. She's a surrogate mother for her sister, who's been trying to conceive for years, but the costs were becoming too high. She says Josh mixed Victor a drink right before the party. Josh also set up the party and hired the mystery party planners, the Wells family. Helen is the brains who creates the scenarios. Her husband Hugo plays Inspector Doppler, and her son Andrew was the deadwaiter. Winter finds prussic acid, which is another name for cyanide, in a cabinet that anyone could access. Barnaby lets anyone who is not close enough to poison Victor leave the island as the storm is getting worse. He also sends Fleur back with the body, but as she gets off the ferry, the chain breaks, stranding Barnaby and Winter on the island, with no phones and a murderer. This party just keeps getting better and better. In classic whodunit fashion, Barnaby brings everyone into the parlor and tells them they're stuck there. He asks for their phones and begins questioning them. Joshua points the finger at Danny, saying she is ambitious and greedy, and apparently Victor was going to retire and turn the company over to her, but he changed his mind. However, Danny says the company is about to be the victim of a hostile takeover, so why kill for something that won't even exist? She points a finger at Helen, saying she saw her fighting with Victor before he died. Partner Noah is also a suspect because Victor wasn't interested in investing in a business based on kintsugi, Japanese art of putting broken things back together with gold. Paul also had a motive. He was Victor's accountant, was fired 6 months ago over a late tax return. Why were any of these people invited? That night, the detectives bunk together wearing Victor's PJs. Someone slips a note under the door that reads, "I bet the accounts don't match." They also notice that someone is in the study, but when they investigate, that person is already gone running outside. Winter chases after him, but ends up getting tackled by Hugo, who's also chasing the mysterious person. Next morning, Barnaby questions Helen, who says that she developed a board game 25 years ago and sent it to Karras Games to see if they wanted it. She never heard from them, and they released a game very similar to hers. She didn't have the money to sue them then. She saw this party as an opportunity to finally confront Victor. She didn't want anything other than acknowledgement. He just laughed in her face. She denies killing him, and also says Andrew made him a drink, didn't even know about the game. Hugo tells Helen he will help her by solving the case first. finds a piece of plastic on the bank of the river he believes is a clue. After getting into Victor's laptop and finding a second message that says watch, Winter finds evidence that Josh has been stealing from them, using the corporate card to buy things like an expensive watch. The whole thing was the idea of his secret lover, Andrew, who's happy to put one over on Victor. In fact, why would they kill him since they could still rip him off? Josh tried to erase the evidence, but he missed some. Turns out Paul is the one who sent the messages, his revenge for Josh causing his firing. Alicia had uncovered the fraud when she saw Josh buying the watch. They were planning to let Victor know once they had all the evidence. Eleanor reveals to the detectives that Victor had uncovered evidence of a mole in the company. He had hired a detective to find the identity. He was going to reveal the final report after the party. Victor never told her who it was, but she knows it was someone close to him, and she believes this mole is the killer. She can't find the report, and Barney believes he hid it in the giant Japanese puzzle box in his office. And then after a weird threat from Josh, Alicia collapses, and the detectives find evidence of cyanide in her teacup. Tourist info. This is our only stop at Kara's house, probably because it's on an island with a rickety old ferry, so it's kind of hard to get to. Owned by millionaire Victor Karras, the house is a tribute to his love of games and puzzles, and is full of ancient artifacts and toys, so it's creepy as hell. Plenty of free pajamas.
Standing in for Kara's house was West Whitcomb Park, a Georgian house started in 1740 and built in the Palladian style. It was influenced by the visits to Italy of its first owner, Francis Dashwood, 11th Baron de la Despencer. Dashwood was notorious for being a libertine and a rake, as well as a bit of a political gadfly during the reign of George II. He started the second of the notorious Hellfire Clubs. West Whitcomb Park is reputed to have hosted a rather large number of orgies while he lived there. Let's hope it's had a thorough cleaning. It's been used in The Crown, Howard's End, Downton Abbey, The Importance of Being Earnest, Cranford, and X-Men First Class. And yes, you can get married there. An artificial lake on the estate grounds created by a dam on the River Wye stood in for the flooded river.
Who wants to get married at a former orgy palace?
Lots of people. People get married in all sorts of strange places.
Not going to that wedding. Why is this floor so sticky? All right, so we have a strange kill right off the bat. Death by vape. Victor is murdered with a poisoned vape. The killer uses acetonitrile, which is metabolized in the body and turns into cyanide. Writers did the research on this one because they were accurate on this. It wasn't some made-up poison. However, metabolization can occur anywhere between 2 and 12 hours, so they kind of pushed it a little bit to make their point. I did like that we actually, one of the first lines of dialogue is, "Those things will be the death of you." And it's actually repeated. We actually told the solution right at the beginning.
Yeah, this is all very, very Agatha Christie.
Yep. It's a very quirky, old-fashioned episode.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, of course, stuck in a mansion during a storm with a murderer. This is a classic mystery plot, straight out of Agatha Christie and The Mousetrap, which I felt this was like a little bit of a tribute to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I also thought it was like a tribute to the classic play and movie Sleuth, which is set in a mansion full of weird toy curios.
Yeah. And that is a really fantastic movie if you haven't seen that.
Which version are you talking about?
The classic Michael Caine, Laurence Olivier version.
And not the Michael Caine, Jude Law one?
I haven't seen that one, actually.
I haven't either. It is apparently where Michael Caine this time is playing the Laurence Olivier part.
Mm-hmm.
And Jude Law was playing the part that Michael Caine famously played.
Yeah.
But yes, it's both. It felt, I was looking at this mansion full of all these crap, and I was like, well, no wonder this guy has financial trouble. He shops like Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Sell, I don't know, the giant statue of Anubis for some money?
Yeah, I was actually thinking of Egyptology as my history corner, but it's very much just at the beginning, and there's a little bit of a tie into it, but it's more just of as a prop thing rather than really tied into the game, into the plot.
Well, they don't really, like, all the games and stuff like that, the toys and the curios, that made sense. I didn't quite get the Egyptology thing. Yeah. Like, they didn't really explain, oh, he has a love for games and puzzles. They never said he also loves ancient Egypt.
Yeah. Yeah, this isn't the guy who, this isn't Lord Carnarvon,
Yeah,
you know, where who sponsored Howard Carter and his King Tut tomb
yeah.
raiding.
You really wanted to call out the cinematography in this episode.
I did. I mean, we've talked about cinematography a lot. This is another Al Beach episode, whose first Midsomer episode was Death and Persuasion. Um, which also was set very much at a beautiful historic mansion, and he filmed that beautifully. He does that with this house as well. He really does just seem to relish being able to film these beautiful locations. My favorite sequence, though, is that sequence of shots showing Fleur leaving on the ferry. And those are some of my favorite of the entire series. That red rain suit that she is wearing and surrounded by that darkness as she's slowly going away. I mean, she is majestic, and as Barnaby says, and he films it that way.
That was a very ominous set of shots. I would agree. Like that was very. It's especially when you realize that her raincoat is red and everyone else's is more of a neutral,
Mm-hmm.
dark color. So she really pops. But then also the reverse shot of Eleanor standing as a shadowy figure on the banks,
Yeah,
which gives it a great ominous, almost like the figure of death.
yeah. And there's some, even though there's a lot of darkness in this with a lot of night shadows, which is
Mhm.
really cool. There's also these pops of colors. Yeah, obviously Fleur's raincoat, but also Barnaby's yellow rain outfit. And then the colorful toys and curios, that bring that kind of they're like the only pops of color because everybody's kind of dressed in very neutral colors except for that.
Yeah. I also thought this episode had a bit of the upstairs downstairs to it,
Hmm.
where you had the wealthy, the Karrases, and then the people, Josh and
Hmm.
Andrew, and were very bitter towards them. And Agatha Christie had a bit of the upstairs. The like definitely hers was more. Her characters were much more of the upper class.
Yeah.
It just came out to me as that like, oh, this is, again, like if we're talking about these manor houses, the Downton Abbey of it all.
Hmm.
The in Downton Abbey, everyone is sort of working together for the good of the house and the good of the rich family. And here they're like, you know, these rich people, let's just take them for what they're worth.
Yeah. Class is a thread that runs through the Midsummer episodes. It's not a hammer over the head kind of thing, but it's very much entwined into fabric of what is Midsummer.
I did think there was some weird construction to the episode. I felt like they would set up these smaller mysteries and then resolve them immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Like who's like the mystery of who's robbing the company.
Mm-hmm.
In 5 minutes, we find out it's Josh.
Yeah.
What is this plastic? What was Hugo thinking?
Yeah.
And within 5 minutes, we have the solution. They didn't linger on anything. It's like they didn't, like, they set up a mystery and then they solved it like that.
Yeah, the one thing that got drawn out was who was the mole, which
Yeah,
they resolve fairly late. So they do draw that out, and then the means, which they seem to resolve early, but then they have to change
yeah.
the means of death.
Well, I will say this. I found it strange that Eleanor, it took her second interview to mention, oh, yeah, by the way,
Yeah,
there was a mole.
yeah,
Gosh, Eleanor, don't you think this was information they might have been able to use earlier?
yeah. And what's funny is that after they found out that the means of death was different, they didn't go back and say, maybe we shouldn't have let all those people go home.
Yeah. Also, why did they take everyone's phones? They weren't working.
Yeah.
Who were they going to call? Also, they might have, like, if they had really nice rich people phones, they might have been able to get someone to get across that river, which didn't look super flooded. Let's be fair.
It is a lake.
It didn't look super flooded. I also thought it was interesting that twice in the episode we have these flashbacks to scenes that we had seen earlier in the episode, but then they tack on a minute before or a minute after,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I call the Arrested Development style. It's just like just for this little bit, we're just like, oh, that happened to. There was absolutely no reason why we couldn't have seen them.
Yeah.
They just needed, for some reason, I don't know why they had that weird.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of the flood, you know, couldn't they have just, like, if the thing is attached to a chain, couldn't they have just like found a way to pull the boat.
Well, I thought that the chain had broken, but I don't know.
I thought the motor had exploded.
Oh. Yeah, it was a little unclear as to what actually happened to the ferry.
Well, I thought the whole thing where the Boston police force just lets two of their own on an island with a potential murderer for a few days and finds absolutely no way to communicate with them. Yeah, they're good.
Yeah.
He solves too many crimes anyways.
Yeah.
He's making the rest of us look bad.
Yeah. Plus all those, breaking and entering. Oh, wait, that was the other Barnaby.
Yeah. Finally, it's Sergeant Angel's time to shine.
Sergeant Angel. Can't wait till we get into that episode.
Yep. And then, I did love, though, when they try to take the phones and Danny argues and it just becomes this instant fight where everybody is just literally talking on top of each other.
That felt very real to me.
It did. They never repeat it. They never repeat it in the episode, but it was just a funny moment of just
It was one of those absurdist scenes.
Yes.
That you just, they need to do that more.
I also liked the music. I thought they did a very good job of good creepy music throughout the entire episode, although there are moments where it just was a little over the top and overbearing. There was so much dramatic music when Winter was literally opening a bookcase. I was like, this needed no music. He's just opening a bookcase. Nothing's gonna pop out at him.
Yeah.
So this episode has a lot of international influences. A ton. We'll talk about the game Hounds and Jackals a little bit later. But obviously, right off the bat, you get Anubis. Huge statue of Anubis. He is the Egyptian god of the underworld, mummification, and funeral rites. So the fact that Anubis's spear killed Victor is a little symbolic.
Yeah.
Anubis is historically depicted as a man with a black jackal's head. He was considered a positive god, even though he was all in black, because in Egyptian mythology, the color black symbolized regeneration.
He would often lead, and he's depicted, and in fact, I have a copy of one in a very modern papyrus in my bedroom wall, of him leading the dead into the realm of Osiris. Very famous image from ancient works.
And they would often carve Anubis into the tombs of the rich and powerful. So again, very symbolic that a rich and powerful man killed by Anubis' spear.
Yeah.
And then a big plot point in this episode is kintsugi, which is the Japanese art. Basically, you repair pottery with using a lacquer mixed with gold or silver to highlight that the plate has been repaired or the pottery has been repaired, as opposed to trying to hide it. Basically, the philosophy is that breaks and repairs are a part of an object story and not something to be missed. I have no idea what kind of business this Noah was looking to create, because this seems like the kind of thing you do on Etsy.
I know. It was like, are you just going to open a shop?
Yeah.
Of people's junk?
Because who doesn't, just want to bring a box full of broken pottery into a guy and say, here you go. I liked that Danny calls the whole thing putting lipstick on a pig. Also, so he basically repaired that whole platter on the day of the party.
Yeah.
Which was then he used that as his pitch.
Yeah.
And I have to say, it seems like something you should have done beforehand.
Especially since he put it in a box for, a present. Like, oh, I don't have a present. Oh, there's a broken platter. Let me kintsugi the ass out of that.
Do you think he broke it himself?
I don't know.
Of course, there's a huge plot point with the Japanese puzzle box. Now, my research, which basically was trying to read a couple of websites, Japanese puzzle boxes originated in the 19th century in the Hakone region. Although I did find one source said the 1600s, and I think that might have been a mistake. They are intricate boxes that have lots of secret panels and puzzles. They're game. They're basically like a treasure box game. Which Eleanor was not thrilled at when he put her necklace birthday present in there and said, yeah, if you want it, you got to get it out. What an ass.
It seems like, you could do a nice gift wrapping and not have it be so jerky.
I mean, it's classic. Here, honey, here's something I like.
Yeah.
And I like that, they solve it by pointing out that that makers sometimes will put a deliberate imperfection because God is perfect, humans not so much.
That is true.
Obviously, because this is a lot of this episode is about games and puzzles. Eileen, you did a history corner about the history of puzzle games.
Yeah, well, mainly board games, which have a long history. But no one knows how long ago humans began playing games, but a good guess would be thousands of years ago when some kids were bored in their cave because it was raining and their mom told them to go play with the mammoth bones from last night's dinner and leave her alone. Eventually, the cool kids started carving those bones into dice, and Yahtzee! Gaming was born. Sticks, stones, and shells were also probably used. Board games soon followed around 5,000 years ago, according to the archaeological evidence in Turkey and other areas of the Middle East. The rich played with carved boards and possibly exchanged them as diplomatic gifts, while the poor probably scratched out a board in the dirt. Mancala is possibly the oldest game, with boards being found in Neolithic dwellings, and versions are still played today. It is played with seeds and a board with several pits in which the seeds are sown. It is classified as a count and capture game, involving a considerable amount of strategy. Current adaptations include Bao in Eastern Africa, Kala in North America, Amweso in Uganda and the UK, and Awari in much of Europe, among others. The precursors to checkers, or drafts as it is known in the UK, also developed thousands of years ago somewhere in Egypt or the Middle East. It was played by the pharaoh Hatshepsut and mentioned by Homer and Plato. In non-English languages, it is called a variation of dame or damas, meaning ladies, and the pawns promoted to what we call kings were queens. In ancient Egypt, the game Senet was played, and game sets have been found in tombs along with the paintings depicting both men and women playing it. The board had 30 squares and 3 rows of 10, and each player had 5 tokens. Exquisite boards were made of wood, ivory, or faience with a drawer underneath to hold the playing pieces. The game was played for 2,000 years and was mentioned in the Book of the Dead. Mehen was also played in ancient Egypt, and as the game board resembles a coiled snake, it was named after the snake deity. While the rules are unknown, it was probably like Senet, a race game. Hounds and Jackals was another game played in ancient Egypt during the Middle Kingdom, in which 2 players maneuvered 10 sticks with either the head of a jackal or a dog around a board made up of 58 holes, giving it the alternate name of 58 holes. The name the Egyptians used for the game is unknown, as no one bothered to save the original box, so archaeologist Howard Carter of King Tut fame gave it the name Hounds and Jackals. The game spread to Mesopotamia, where the royal game of Ur was also popular. This was played on a board of 20 squares and is regarded as a precursor to the game of backgammon. It eventually fell out of play, except among a Jewish population in the Indian city of Kochi, who played it there under the name Asha until the 1950s, when they began emigrating to Israel. Board games were also popular in ancient India. Chaturanga, the board game that was the precursor to chess, was developed in India possibly as early as the 5th century AD. In Persia, it developed into Satranj, and from there it was introduced to Muslim Spain and Sicily. The word checkmate comes from the Persian shamat, which means the king is dead. Chaturanga may have also influenced the development of other board games in Eastern Asia as well, such as the popular Japanese game shogi, played on a board with tiles. The game we call Go, also called Weiichi, was developed in China sometime before 548 BCE, which is the earliest record of the game. Snakes and ladders also developed in India as early as the 2nd century AD. Like many ancient board games, it was initially spiritual in nature and showed that moral behavior was rewarded while immoral acts were punished. It was brought to Great Britain in the 1890s, and in 1943, Milton Bradley released their version of the board game under the name Chutes and Ladders, replacing the snakes with playground slides. Pachisi also developed in India around the 6th century, being the precursor to what Brits call Ludo, and Hasbro marketed as Parcheesi and the similar game Sorry. Board games were also popular in ancient Greece and Rome and have even been mentioned in Homer, and may have been versions of ancient Egyptian games. Ancient Greek pottery depicts board games being played, and ancient Roman board games were carried by soldiers all over the empire. These games honed skills of strategy and the mental side of wardcraft. There's archaeological evidence of games being played in the Americas as long as they have been played in Africa, Asia, and Europe. Patoli was popular in Mesoamerica from around the 3rd century BC. It used marked beans as a sort of dice, and gameplay is similar in objective to Pachisi. Tafel games, which were strategy games played on beautifully carved boards, were developed in Northern Europe, but they were supplanted by chess around the 12th century, though a version was still played by the Sami up until the 18th century. In 1759, John Jeffreys, a British geography and writing teacher, designed a board game he named A Journey Through Europe, or The Play of Geography, the first board game with a known designer. In 1800, George Fox developed a morality-based game called The Mansion of Happiness, which was a prototype for board games for the next 2 centuries. The modern era of commercial board games started in 1869 when Parcheesi was copyrighted in the U.S. In 1904, Elizabeth McGee patented the Landlord's game to illustrate the evils of land grabbing. Copycats soon followed, and in 1935, Parker Brothers released their version, which they called Monopoly. Criss Crosswords was invented by Alfred Mosher Butts in 1931, but it did not become popular until after World War II, when James Bruno simplified the game and changed the name to Scrabble. From Russia came the precursor to Battleship, while the French invented Risk, as well as a game that would become Stratego in the U.S. Pluto was developed in the UK by Anthony E. Pratt, who wanted something to divert himself and his friends during the air raids of World War II. Canada brought us Trivial Pursuit in 1981. A new type of game was developed in Germany after World War II that de-emphasized the military nature of many board games. Called Eurogames or German-style board games, we could see the development of this style in games such as Carcassonne, The Settlers of Catan, and Ticket to Ride. The games are more social, with multiple players gathering resources, and there's no player elimination. Skill is emphasized over luck. Pandemic, released in 2008, requires players to work together to either win or lose as a team. Sales of board games are over $1 billion annually worldwide, and board games continue to rise in popularity. Family game night has become a popular pastime, and board games kept many of household from going all midsummer during the COVID lockdowns. Or maybe not. Some people take their Catan way too seriously.
What's your favorite board game?
I do love like Scrabble and upwards, so I love like the word board games. Catan is a lot of fun when your family like relaxes and doesn't get all evil about it. Certain family members.
I feel like you're working something out here.
I love Ticket to Ride, but it's so complicated.
As a kid, I really loved Life.
Mm-hmm.
I love the spinner.
Oh yeah, that was fun. Yeah,
but I also love that when you could sell your kids back.
I love just like putting people in the little people, into the little car, in the little holes in the car. That was always so much fun.
Oh yeah. Shall we do some cast highlights?
Yeah.
All right. So Rachel Sterling played grieving Eleanor Karras. Sterling is the daughter of the great Diana Rigg. She had her first major stage role as Desdemona in a 1997 production of Othello at the National Youth Theatre opposite Chiwetel Ejiofor. She's been nominated twice for Olivier Awards for her stage work, and on-screen has appeared in Tipping the Velvet, The Bletchley Circle, The Game, Detectorists, and the Crimson Horror episode of Doctor Who alongside her mother. Apparently she is a proficient horse jumper, can speak Russian, and is married to the lead singer of the band Elbow. I thought she played Grief really well in this episode, even up to her raspy voice and, where it just sounded like jagged out after crying.
Yeah, I did too, yeah. And I also enjoyed her working with her mother in that Doctor Who episode they did. And Midsomer, I think, does this nicely, is they show grief well.
Yes, every once in a while.
Every once in a while, yeah.
Paul Baisley was the anemic Paul Matheson. He was born in London from parents of Indian descent. He's appeared in Vanity Fair, Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, Benidorm, Star Wars The Last Jedi, Such Brave Girls, and Miss Scarlet and the Duke. He has also voiced many of the books of meditation teacher Eknath Eswaran and of the Ramakrishna Vivekananda Center of New York. Georgina Rich was Itchy Alicia Matheson. She started her career trying to make it as a professional dancer, but after a few years she decided to also focus on acting and made it into the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, or RADA. She's probably best known for her role on the Netflix fave Heartstopper, but she's also appeared in River, Black Mirror, and Wallace, the Queen Who Never Was. Fun fact, her first role on the West End was in the play Honor, in which the actress playing her mother was Diana Rigg. Vanessa Emmy was Greedy Dani Karras. Now, she's an Irish actress who graduated from the Lure Academy with a bachelor's in acting. She's been very active on TV in the last few years. She's appeared in The Fall, Dublin Murders, Bloodlands, A Discovery of Witches, and I believe she's currently second banana on The Chelsea Detective. I thought she had an amazing scene when she is told that her dad knew she was the mole,
Hmm.
and the shock and the repentance on her face.
Yeah. And her final moments of the in the episode where she is kind of shunned by
Hmm.
everyone. And she kind of shows that devastation in her face, yeah.
Ed White played manipulative Andrew Wells. White's first on-screen role was as Stag in the film version of Mamma Mia. He's gone on to appear in Hollyoaks, Tar, The Pope's Exorcist, and the most recent season of Doctor Who. Carolyn Quentin was murder expert Helen Wells. Now, she has a long and very successful career on British TV. She's appeared in the hit shows Jonathan Creek, Men Behaving Badly, Kiss Me Kate, and Blue Murder. She's also an avid gardener, whose book Drawn to the Garden was published in 2024. Greg Lockett was bitter Joshua Kilbride. He's appeared in Florence Foster Jenkins, Treadstone, Venom, Let There Be Carnage, The Flash, and Queen Cleopatra. He studied at the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, Lambda, where he won the Lambda Poetry Speaking Competition. Aki Omoshaibi played superglue enthusiast Noah Adomako. He's appeared in Star Wars The Last Jedi, Father Brown, Queens of Mystery, and The Pursuit of Love. Currently, he's on Silent Witness as the character Gabriel Polakoya. He's also writing and directing films. His first film, Real, came out in 2019, and he's currently in development with his second film called Hum.
Not many return visitors this time. Stuart Milligan played puzzle lover Victor Karras. We previously talked about him when he dropped his pants in Country Matters. He's an American actor living in the UK, where he is best known for his recurring appearances as Adam Klaus on the mystery series Jonathan Creek, so a fun reunion for him with Caroline Quentin. He's also appeared in Whoops Apocalypse, which sounds fantastic, Outland, The Assets, and Jack Ryan. He played Richard Nixon on Doctor Who. We had a number of uncredited return visitors playing party guests and police officers, so we want to thank Lee Byford, Michelle Jeffers, Raju Ladwa, Veena Ladwa, Atush Sharma, and Vanita Sharma for their hard work. And of course, this episode featured Mayor of Midsomer, Chris Wilson, as a police officer. Our village star this week is Adrian Edmondson, playing bumbling pseudo-detective Hugo Wells. He studied drama at Manchester University, where he met Rick Mayall and formed the comedy team called 20th Century Coyote. After graduating, they went to London and became part of the 80s alternative comedy boom. Edmondson and Mayall co-starred in the iconic cult comedy The Young Ones, and he became a fan favorite as the destructive punk Vivian. He also appeared with several of his Young Ones co-stars in Bottom and Bad News. He guest starred on a ton of TV shows and appeared in films like Star Wars The Last Jedi, a role he got because writer Ryan Johnson loves the Young Ones. He's performed in the band The Bad Shepherds and wrote songs for the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band. I never thought I'd ever say stuff like that. He won the 2019 Celebrity MasterChef competition. He's also been married to, let's face it, legend Jennifer Saunders of Ab fame since 1985.
They're both kind of legends.
Yeah.
The 80s alternative comedy boom was, huge in the UK, and that's also where like Hugh Laurie came from. Stephen Fry, uh, Rick Mayall passed away a few years back. He's also a huge comedy star in the UK. I thought he was a pure delight in this episode. Edmondson has always been one of my favorites. I loved him in The Young Ones. That is one of those defining shows for me. And I just thought it was really nice to see him in this.
Yeah.
He was, his Hugo was kind of the bumbling detective, but meant well.
Yeah, and he doesn't overplay it, which is nice. You know this character from all your Poirot mysteries, from your Miss Marples. They're the detective who thinks they kind of know what they're doing. And he actually, Barnaby gives him credit, he actually did figure some things out.
Yep. We're going to take a break here, and we're going to be back with the second half of Happy Families.
Consider this. Victor Karras didn't die when we think he did.
Mr. Wells.
He actually died much later. An elaborate ruse to throw us off the scent.
So elaborate it involved him also being impaled by a life-size figure of Anubis.
Oh, smoke and mirrors. Have you checked the traces of fake blood? All right? They all did it.
What?
Not one killer, multiple killers.
each contributing a grain of cyanide, I suppose.
Yes, well.
And we're back. Let's talk about the second half. Happy families.
In some cultures, artists would include a deliberate imperfection in their work to show that they were merely human.
Alicia survived the poisoning thanks to her husband's B12 shot he carries for his anemia. Although Josh made a vague threat, it was Eleanor who poured the tea. But why would she kill the sister she is carrying a baby for? Eleanor is also the beneficiary from Victor's death. She says she only wants her husband back, not his money. Besides, British law says she could keep the baby if she truly wanted to, so no need to kill Alicia. Barnaby thinks Alicia might have witnessed something the night of Victor's death when she left the party to go get her eczema cream. That's why she was targeted. Hugo feels he's onto something with his piece of plastic, but later that night he attempts to meet with someone in the dining room and is murdered. When he is found in the morning, he is clutching Eleanor's necklace. She says that the necklace was in her jewelry box where anyone could have taken it, and there's no mark on her neck where it would have been ripped off. Ellen gives the detectives the plastic piece Hugo found and says he told her he had figured out how Victor was poisoned, but hadn't told her. He wanted to do a big reveal, but clearly was killed to shut him up. Barnaby sits in the same spot where Hugo had his eureka moment and ends up with his classic Barnaby brain fart. Victor was poisoned using his vape kit, which has gone missing. But he only vaped in the morning, so why did the fast-acting cyanide poison so slowly? He also figures out the puzzle box and finds the private investigator's report naming Danny as the. She knew the company was going under, so she just helped it along and hid some money from it. She did not know her father had hired an investigator and is terrified her father died believing she hated him. At this point, Noah also decides to end things with her, and she smashes his kintsugi platter that he made the morning of the party. Barnaby realizes Noah used a shard he found in the trash, a bottle of acetonitrile, which breaks down over the course of 12 hours in the human body, turns into cyanide. So Victor was poisoned much earlier than thought. That means everybody's alibis are out the window. Whoever tampered with the vape kit threw it away in the storm, not realizing a part of the kit fell off onto the ground. They smashed that bottle of poison and threw it in the trash, not knowing Noah would dumpster dive it out. The last piece of the puzzle comes from a scent on a fiber found on the necklace. The detectives set a trap by letting the suspects know they have evidence that will solve the case. Later on, a fire alarm goes off to lure everyone out of the house. Detectives catch Alicia in their room messing with the evidence. She reveals herself as the killer, but she denies poisoning a vape kit, and Barnaby reminds her that I never mentioned a vape kit. She poisoned herself with the prussic acid, knowing that a small dose could be cured by the B12. She killed Hugo because he told her he believed Josh poisoned them. She couldn't risk him being so close to the truth, so she shut him up, attempting to frame Eleanor in the process. Why do all of this? Because she believed that Eleanor and Victor wanted to keep the baby that Alicia had longed for so very long, based on a scrap of conversation she overheard between Eleanor and Victor about them building a nursery for the baby. Except she didn't hear the part where they said they were planning to build the nursery at Alicia's house as a surprise to her. So basically, she killed Victor and Hugo for no reason. As Alicia is taken away, Eleanor says that she will raise her sister's baby. Something good could come out of all this. The ferry is finally repaired and everyone can leave the island. Barnaby returns home and tells Sarah that he had been offered a cushy desk promotion. That's why he was so irritable. But that would mean he wouldn't be able to solve murders anymore. And he loves murder way too much to give it up. So I kind of thought the solution, put every little bit together.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit like a kintsugi Japanese puzzle box.
As a good mystery should.
Yes. Is it just me, or did this feel, especially with the talk of a promotion and whatnot, that this had the feeling of a season finale?
I think it would have worked better as a season finale because it's such a strong episode. It really would have ended that season on a very high note, rather than a rather mediocre one. Angels of Witches Rise.
Yeah, and it has a feel to it.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if they just put it out of order or whatnot. Because it's like the whole thing about Barnaby taking a desk job, which pops up every once in a while, and it's like, of course they're not, because then the show's over.
Yeah.
Or we got to find a new Barnaby. You know, how many How many Barnabys are we going to put on this police force?
Pretty soon it will be Betty Barnaby, girl detective.
I would watch that.
I would too.
All right, our killer this time was Alicia, who pretty much was a weird, nervous character throughout the first half. She has eczema, so she's constantly itching and twitching and seems very scared.
Hmm.
But then we really see her sort of her suspicions and jealousy over her sister kind of growing through the second half.
Yeah.
That was a really dumb reason to kill people.
Yeah, and I have to say the misheard conversation or the misunderstood thing is like one of my least favorite tropes. Um,
Well, that's the plot of pretty much every Three's Company.
I know.
Um,
Not a favorite of mine.
yeah. I heard this one thing, so I just assumed you were going to keep my baby. And it's like, you didn't ask her?
Yeah. Yeah. Just ask.
Yeah, ask a question.
Yeah.
Stop scratching. Go ask a question.
And they could have actually seeded that better because the motive was not really seeded anywhere.
Yeah. Well, she also reveals herself with a classic mystery blunder, which they kind of alluded to in the first bit when they're talking about the game. And like Hugo's like, detectives can tell the difference between a mistake and a lie.
Yeah.
And she made a mistake. She said way too much.
Always keep your mouth shut.
So she says that she and her husband had been trying for a baby for a very long time, but the costs had become too much. And I was kind of like, where was her sister then? Like, they can afford to build the freaking nursery, but they can't, like, they couldn't afford to help her out with, like, implantation or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, unless there was some reason that her uterus was not accepting the baby and she needed.
Well, that's not what they said.
Yeah.
She said it just became too expensive.
Yeah.
Also, if you look at for her pregnant, like the way Eleanor was pregnant,
Hmm.
the surrogacy started a little before Paul got fired.
Yeah.
That was a little tense, right?
Oh, well, happy families.
Well, Victor, they really make Victor kind of like a complicated character between sort of stuff, right? Like,
Hmm.
he loves Eleanor and is willing to do stuff for Eleanor, but then he also puts her gift in a puzzle box.
Yeah.
He laughs at Helen, even though they probably stole her game.
Yeah.
Who knows what he was going to do to Danny?
Yeah. I mean, he was kind of dangling her along and the whole thing with Josh, and Eleanor says we treated you like family, which is one of those rich people things of we didn't treat you like a slave, we just treated you like a servant. So hey, that means you're family.
Well, they don't treat Danny too well, so they weren't wrong. When they said that, and Josh's response was like, "Have you ever been so unappreciated?" And Winter, who's standing behind him, makes just the classic, like, "I feel you, buddy."
And Jones and Troy and
Yeah.
Scott and Nelson would have been right there with him.
Exactly. Alicia did a very good job, sort of in the first half. I thought, kind of hiding her guilt. I love when she said, "Catch who did this, please."
Hmm.
Very much like, I'm innocent, so you
Yeah.
can catch whoever did this.
Yeah.
I also thought Paul was a really nice character who very clearly loved his wife.
Hmm.
I loved that moment where after like he thinks she's been poisoned and he comes in and he's just, you could tell he's, again, wonderful acting.
Hmm.
Baisley, that relief on his face of his
Yeah.
wife is going to be okay.
Yeah. Just generally some just top-notch acting.
Yeah.
Again.
Also paired with the look on his face when he discovers the truth.
Yeah.
But I also thought it was weird that they made that, like, so they're trying to lead them to the accounts,
Hmm.
right? Why didn't they just say check the accounts? Why the notes? Like, why not just tell the detectives, hey, Josh was stealing from the company.
Yeah.
Go on the computer and find it. Like, the
Yeah.
evidence is in there.
Yeah.
Like, the notes were silly.
They're part of the game.
It's part of being an Agatha Christie thing, but again,
Yeah.
they resolved who it was so quickly. Like, the
Yeah.
first note, and then like 5 minutes later, it's resolved who did it.
Yeah.
So it was like, what was the point?
Yeah.
Did you think Eleanor was going to give birth?
Pop that baby out any minute because she kind of felt like she was going into labor at times.
Right? Like, the first half is like,
Yeah.
oh, my stomach. Oh, this baby.
Yeah.
did they just decide, like, partially that this would be too much? But it did feel a little, it just felt like they were hinting at that, and just
Yeah.
never went anywhere.
Yeah.
By the way, so I was curious because she is the surrogate for her sister,
Mm.
and I did some checking. So the actress was probably around 44 at the time of filming.
Mhm.
And the American Society for Reproductive Medicine has a general maximum age of about 40. They say you can go up to about 45, but they generally don't want 40. And I was kind of watching this going, why is Eleanor the surrogate? I mean, yeah, it's her sister, but she also seems a little old, and like the health risks would increase.
Yeah. Maybe she was the only one that willing to do it. Danny certainly wouldn't have done it.
No, but
Mm.
it doesn't need to be a family member either.
No.
There's other.
Yeah. I guess, yeah. Maybe she volunteered, when she said, "Oh, we're looking for a surrogate." And I could do that.
I wonder if there's like a little sub because Eleanor doesn't seem to have any kids of her own.
Yeah.
Right, Danny's a stepchild, and I wonder if there was like a line or two cut out where Eleanor was like, I always wanted to have kids, but Victor was already set.
Yeah.
This is my way of finally getting to experience motherhood. Blah 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 blah. That maybe got cut for time.
Yeah.
Would have explained that little that maybe that would have explained Alicia's fear as well.
Yeah. It would have, yeah.
Like, if Eleanor had come out and said, I never wanted to have kids,
Yeah.
but I'm doing this for my sister because Alicia can't do anything on her own.
Yeah, that would have flushed it out and teased the motive a bit more.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the Wells because I love their weird little dynamic.
I loved them, and I want to
Yeah.
go to their well, I can't
Not anymore.
yeah, but I want to go to their mystery parties.
Now they had a really great introduction with the very dramatic murder scene. It's like, oh, the body, and then Hugo comes in, and it's just so hammy.
Yeah.
I was just waiting for him to point at like the camera, like, can you solve this?
Yeah. I love when he says from the yard.
Helen is the writer of all the scenarios. She does all the research. She knew all about the stuff, which I thought was kind of cool. I also kind of love the titles of, I guess she called them her plays,
Mm-hmm.
but Murder at the Yacht Club, which we've seen that episode.
Yes.
He Who Slays the Piper, Murder Most Foul, which was for a plumber's convention.
Murder Most Foul was a movie they made out of one of Agatha Christie's books. Yeah, it was not the title of one of hers, but yeah.
I loved her game idea
Mm-hmm.
of a serial killer murdering in the London smog. I would play the hell out of that game.
Yeah, that would be fun.
And I could see why they wouldn't have made it 25 years ago, but now,
Oh yeah,
like even in the last 10 years, they would have made so much money on that game. That
yeah,
would have been a very popular board.
yeah.
Hugo decides he's going to start living his role a little too much. He's going to restore order to chaos.
He really loves this character that he is playing of the detective, and I think that's what he really wants to be. I mean, he wants to be Barnaby's equal as far as an investigator.
It's not want. He thinks.
Yeah,
He thinks because he's played a detective, he can be a detective.
yeah.
Which is, no. But then he actually does kind of one-up him because he does figure out the vaping thing. But that's also because he takes the piece of plastic and he holds on to it, doesn't share it.
Yeah,
Like but he gets that smug smile.
yeah. Yep.
I love that moment when he's talking to Barnaby and trying to offer these insane theories.
Yeah. Which I think every single one of them did come from an Agatha Christie novel.
And Barnaby just kind of shuts the door on him, and bit rude. And he wanted to do the reveal of who he thought did it.
Yeah.
Like an Agatha Christie or Death in Paradise.
Yeah, the big reveal in front of a crowd.
Which just drives me nuts every episode of Death in Paradise, just because it's like, don't do this in real life. I love Danny's constant reactions to Hugo.
How that lasted as long as it did, I'll never know.
Yeah.
Because she had no respect for him.
And then we have Andrew, who I gotta say it was a bit nice at first to see sort of a gay couple on here with him and Joshua.
Mhm.
And then he is revealed to be quite the sociopath.
Look, we can all empathize with the guys who want to bleed the millionaires and billionaires right now.
Right. However, at the very end, Josh reaches out to him for comfort and Andrew pushes his hand away. Which made me think, was it he had just found a guy who's gonna spend money on him, and now that money's gone, he
Yeah.
doesn't want him anymore. Because he was all about, we're gonna bleed. I would have bled Victor dry.
Yeah.
This is my idea. It's a game to him, which makes me think he pushed Josh to do this.
Yeah.
And then once Josh is gone, or Josh can't do it anymore, I don't need you anymore. It was a very subtle moment towards the end. It's in the big reveal scene, but
And I have to say I missed it but I have, as you know, have very bad vision, and I've got 2 eye surgeries coming up.
Great, we're doing a TV show podcast.
I know. Well, I can't always see some of the subtle details. I have to sometimes view them on my camera, my cell phone camera.
Did you notice that the rain at the very end turned to snow?
And that was real snow because they did film this in January, and it looked like real snow.
Oh yeah, it was like a very light wispy. It was just like, we've got to get this shot. We don't have time.
Yeah, and I just felt sorry for poor Neil Dudgeon standing there in just a suit, no coat on, just a suit.
Let's look at our corner. Our beloved Fleur is back, and she loves The Mummy's Returns.
I have to say, I do love The Mummy and The Mummy Returns. The third one I didn't like as much because, I mean, I'm kind of all about the whole Rachel Weisz in those movies.
Yeah, but she specifically calls out The Mummy Returns. That's the one with the rock.
Yep.
I think we could safely assume that Fleur is into the rock. I love that little moment where she just stops them carrying the body just to let Eleanor say goodbye.
Yeah.
Doesn't say anything, just lets her do it. So I thought that was a nice character moment.
Yeah.
Also a nice character choice that when she's letting Sarah know that they're stuck on the island, she is not comforting at all. I'm not here to make you feel better.
Oh yeah. And Sarah's like, holy moly.
They're on an island with a murderer. It's like, hey, that's no story's name's Brenda. Doesn't fully capture the raw elemental power of nature.
Yeah, she's never known a Brenda.
Yeah. It might be more U.S. Brendas.
Yeah, U.S. Brendas fall into that mean girl category.
And then she's not in the scene, but Barnaby and Winter won't move Hugo because they are afraid of Fleur. Just, we're not touching this. She's crazy. So, which brings us to our detective work. Barnaby is loving the classic lo-fi nature of this mystery, right?
Yeah, he loves that they're kind of cut off.
Yeah, he loves the whodunit. He is loving this whodunit that they're like. It's like, I think he kind of loves that it's an Agatha Christie. Creates a murder board on the wall of their room.
I loved it. That little room that looked like a servant's room or something. Yeah.
I love it that Winter would be in a room working on something, and you just see Barnaby running in, grabbing something, and running back out.
Yeah.
Dudgeon is quite clearly having a ball in this episode.
Oh yeah, I think Nick Hendricks is too as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hendricks had some really fun little moments. Let's just list these off. So when he finds a bottle that says poison, he tastes it. Like a little dab on my finger. What do you think poison tastes like?
Yeah. They do that in so many mysteries. And
he has to share a bedroom with Barnaby. So they slept together. We're going to sleep together. The fanfic writers must have been drooling over that scene.
Well, some of us did like the shirtless Jamie Winter scene.
You mean his V-line?
Yeah.
You know what a V-line is?
Uh-huh.
Winter's his cut. I mean, he didn't have like a rippling six-pack, but he had a V-line.
Yeah.
And he's having to wear those oversized PJs.
Yeah.
Then he has to run in the rain.
Oh, yeah.
They would have fallen down.
Did have a drawstring.
Well, he was holding them.
Maybe he flipped him somehow.
Yeah. Also, can we just reiterate that these were a dead man's pajamas?
Oh yeah, yeah. Dead Man's Pajamas, which might be the name of my next rock group.
There you go. He could not figure out the puzzle on Victor's laptop, but Barnaby did it in seconds.
Well, Barnaby is used to playing games with Betty. They usually aren't that sophisticated.
You say that Winter isn't even as smart as Betty? Betty would have gotten that faster.
Yeah.
You know, there was some other great moments. I love it when Barnaby just sits in the spot to figure out what Hugo's like. What was Hugo thinking when he sat in the spot? And it's like, it's the smoking monkey.
Yeah.
It's the thing that's moving.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that's moving. Why was that thing moving? How did it turn? Like, no one was winding it up. Is it just like this automated smoking monkey that just turns off and on?
Maybe the mansion is haunted. Or maybe it's on a timer.
Oh.
Or maybe Barnaby did it. Or maybe it was just to give him a clue.
I love that he just kept holding the little baggies up to the light.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. This is very funny. So did you notice when they figure out that Victor is a vapor, right?
Yeah.
And they point to the portrait photo of Victor.
Yeah.
The vape pen is just standing directly on the desk. Like in the foreground. Why was that there?
That really didn't need to be there because Danny had already mentioned that he had, started vaping to get over his, the cigarettes and, become self-righteous about it. Yeah. So didn't need that obvious a clue.
But they didn't need it even to they didn't need it to know he vaped. But also, like, any portrait photographer would tell you, that is terrible composition. Move the vape pen to why is that pen in there?
Yeah.
No sane human being would have a photo like that.
Yeah.
Also, so Hugo tackled Winter in the middle of the night in the rainstorm, right?
I would even say not even the middle of the night because it would have been, they were getting ready to go to bed. So I would say midnight-ish at the latest.
So why did they wait to question him until the next morning?
That was one of those things that, this is making absolutely no sense. And standing out in the rainstorm.
Yeah, they did it outside. Why?
Why are you... Yeah. Go inside. If you want to wait till the next morning, just do it inside. Yeah. I mean, yeah. That scene made no sense.
No, it was nuts.
Yeah.
As did Barnaby's giant raincoat, which I know we've called out, but it just made me think he has a sideline as the Gorton fisherman.
That was a classic look. Because Jamie's there in a very sophisticated, very nicely tailored coat. And and Barnaby's in looking like Paddington Bear.
In the home life, so we open, like, our first appearance with Barnaby this episode is he is just in a little snit, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's just being a crab for no reason.
Yeah.
Sarah puts him in his place. Thank you, Sarah. And all of it over the fact that he was offered a desk job.
Yeah.
Which just screams white baby man.
Yeah. The first thing you should do is tell your wife about this. She's always been very supportive of you. She's your partner. You all have a very, very strong partnership. Why you were not telling her right away is kind of weird.
He almost admits that he had an argument that he was in the wrong to Fleur. And I just realized that Barnaby has a harder time apologizing than Fonzie. Sarah, I'm
Yeah.
I was going to say for our younger listeners. We got no listeners.
You might. You never know.
Just Google Fonzie apologizing. You'll get the joke.
I do know we have some Winter fans that follow us.
It's pretty obvious that, something is driving. And then he kind of says, he asks Winter, would you give up all this for something cushy behind a desk? And I'm like, you're kind of asking a dude trapped in a mansion in a rainstorm with a murderer. The answer's probably going to be yes.
Mm-hmm.
You think this is vacation. And then he comes home and apologizes to Sarah, and he just realized that this whole thing that he realized he just cannot quit solving murders and putting himself into dangerous situations. Sarah is cool with it
Yeah.
because she would rather he was out of the house more.
She knows that he would be absolutely miserable sitting at a desk. She actually has other things to do than get left at restaurants like poor Joyce did.
Mhm. Look, we've never had Joyce and Tom back, and I think we can all agree that's because Joyce murdered him like, within a week.
Well, this brings up the whole idea of happy families, and which is the title of the episode, and
Mhm.
it comes from a Leo Tolstoy quote from Anna Karenina. It's very famous. It says, "All happy families are alike. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way." And I do think there's a certain amount of truth to that, but I do think that that happy families can be happy in different ways. I think that Tom and Joyce were happy in a different way than John and Sarah are.
I would agree. I also feel that that statement is just it's a metaphor about sort of happy families tend to there are no happy families deep down like right it does like families can like each other and get along but like there's no such thing as like everyone's happy all the time. That is
Yeah.
a sitcom, and it's a perfect mystery metaphor because it's like
Mhm.
when you pull back the layer
Yeah.
of the happy family you
Mhm.
probably have an unhappy family.
Yeah. And that is what has driven so many mysteries throughout all of time is this notion that there's a superficiality to this happy family that underneath is all rotten, and it ends up in murder, and
Yeah.
it yeah. So, and obviously Agatha Christie really took that to town with a lot of her mysteries. But it's just one of the great mystery tropes.
So this actually I think this just brings us to our final thoughts. What do we think of happy families?
For me, this is one of the best John episodes. I know that there's little issues and everything, but I love that they went back to the roots of a great family locked room mystery, and yeah, everybody's isolated. It has echoes of, like you said the mousetrap. There's echoes of, and then there were none. It's just it's what I love in a mystery is a good contained set.
Yeah. I agree with you that this is one of the best John. It's definitely one of the best John and Winter. It's the
Hmm.
best one of this series.
Hmm.
It's classic. There's nitpicks, but every episode has nitpicks. Every episode has things that just make no sense because it's a TV show.
Yeah,
And it's funny and it's funny to find them.
yeah,
But like this is definitely a great solid episode and definitely one of the best that Dudgeon's been in. And it's definitely one of the better like one of the best ones they've had in the last few years.
yeah,
Part of that I think definitely is by going back to the classic. They wanted to do a classic tribute, so they had to find a way to strip um there's a real thing of like why you see a lot of stuff now set in the 70s and 80s
hmm,
in like mysteries and even the 90s. It's because cell phones.
yeah,
It's because of technology and like things that would require like a little bit more legwork in the past.
hmm,
You could just boop boop boop. I got the answer on my phone.
yeah,
And so you see a lot of these things because it's like when someone's in danger, they don't have a cell phone. How do you get out of it? And
yeah,
that's what I liked about this was that, by stripping that away, they did go back to basics. And that's, you know, and again, it's very clear too that Dudgeon is having a ball in this one.
hmm,
When your actors are enjoying something, they're probably creating something that's enjoyable for you.
yeah,
Happy Families is so solid. Honestly, I feel like in a time right now where there has been a big piece in the whodunits, thanks to things like Nights Out,
hmm.
and the novels of Richard Osman. It's nice to see just this Midsummer just pull off a classic.
Yeah, and I think that this is one that will stand the test of time. It's just because it has stripped everything away to the essentials of what a classic mystery is.
Still would have liked a better reason to kill him, but
Yeah, I just wanted some seeds of that, and there may have been in there, and things get edited out for time, and they don't always make sense because
no.
editors aren't always like thinking overall, But
I would have also. I actually would have liked is another murder or two. I would have loved a little bit more of, and then there will be.
And then there were none, yeah.
Yeah. But again, that's nitpicking. That's nitpicking some stuff that's actually very good.
Yeah.
Well, that's everything we wanted to talk about. If you had anything you wanted to discuss about happy families or Midsomer murders, please feel free to email us at welcometomidsomer@gmail.com. If you want us to use the email in the show, you got to say so in the email. We're also Welcome to Midsomer on Facebook and Instagram and Threads. You can also find us at Welcome to Midsomer on YouTube, and we've been uploading our old episodes, getting a great response to that, so please follow us in all of these places. If you like what you heard, please consider subscribing to us or rating and reviewing us on iTunes. That really helps people find us. Tell all your friends about us. Let them know that we're going to be back soon with a new episode, and we hope you and your friends join us. And as we take the road out of Midsomer, we want to thank you for listening and remind you that in Midsomer, getting stuck in a mansion on an island in a storm can be murder.
Oh, I mean, that's definitely going to be murder. What else can it be?
Yeah, straight up, there's going to be a murder.
Yeah.
Welcome to Midsomer is produced by Eric Buscher and Eileen Becker. All clips in this podcast are used in compliance with the U.S. Copyrights Act fair use exception for criticism and commentary. Our logo and podcast art was designed by Smeedrai. Our theme music is by the infamous Space.